was once a woman named Eliza Cabot, or Tomes now. She had been recently married to her husband, Harold, changing her last name for as long as they would live. They were a happy couple, newlyweds returning from their honeymoon to settle in a home that they had recently purchased. It was in a remote area in Lower California, a large, towering house on the edge of the Pacific. The two simply could not wait any longer, especially Ellie. You see, Eliza had had a very terrible life until those recent years. Ellie was what we would call a complicated person. Many of these complications came from the fact that Eliza never had a father. The man, ironically, died in a car crash on the way to seeing her birth. The girl found out about it one night, a decade later, when she overheard her mother speaking about it over the phone. The young woman often wept, believing she should be in timeout forever for causing her father to die. Ellie's mom would always plead with her daughter, telling her it wasn't her fault that she wasn't with him. The further coincidences occurred. Her mother died soon after that gruesome car crash, on the way to a play she was involved in at school. Ellie's mother had followed her husband to heaven by the same means, but just like her husband, left a daughter behind. Their daughter was left behind prematurely, and as a result, the little Lizzie snapped. The young girl started suddenly seeing delusions and would hallucinate quite often. The little Cabot would spend most of her life in the solitude of a white padded room, while she attained more and more peace of mind as the years went by. Soon enough, right as she became legally an adult, she had finally coped with her mother and father's death, and was able to return to the natural world without the guilt of their deaths. Ellie found herself in the arms of a psychiatrist, Harold, who had helped her quite often in the last years of her treatment. Who better than a psychiatrist to understand her, right? The summer estate was a wreck as they pulled up in their car. Ellie gasped wildly.
Is that our house? It's a piece of junk.
Harold only laughed. It's our piece of junk now, and hey, it's a nice home. It just needs a little spit and polish here and there. Shingles hung away from the roof. The paint had chipped on every inch of the house. Some of the glass windows were decorated with crazy jutting, cracked lines through them. And the whole house was a disgusting mustard yellow. This monster of a house loomed over her, bringing more sheer intimidation rather than warm welcoming. It seemed to beckon her inside, but not for the life of peace, that much was sure. It seemed to foreshadow torment and depression. The house wanted her inside, but only to show her how fallen apart it had become and disperse the depression it had held for so long. This was no home. It was a husk of the lives that it had already lived. This rotting building was only a memory, broken and shattered by the test of time. She didn't see how this place could ever possibly be a nice home. But, as the years had previously shown, her husband always seemed to know how to fix things. Maybe he saw some kind of redemption in this old place, in this old rotting tomb. In many cases, or so she remembers, it may have appeared that she was too far gone for aid, but Hal always saw something in her and pursued it. He had a way with seeing hope buried deep within torment. He could see through undeserving punishment and could see faith deep down within something. And he was almost never wrong about such things either. So, reluctantly, she began unpacking with him. After all, any home is better than solitary confinement. The house was just as enormous on the inside as it was on the outside. These seaside houses usually are, but that's just what she had been told. Ellie had never actually seen one for herself. A large foyer, living room, dining room, 3 bedrooms amongst other rooms that she had not yet discovered. Harold and his wife piled the boxes off the back of Hal's truck and into the vacant living room. Eliza was amazed with the sheer size of this place. She had never seen so many rooms before. Nearly her whole life, she had just been restrained to but one singular room. Now she cannot even fathom how many rooms were in this place. Natural curiosity overwhelmed Eliza's senses. Her feet began to wander, her bare feet patting against the dusty hardwood floors. She traveled into the kitchen. One cabinet lay open, and several plates tucked into corners. Ellie certainly didn't feel alone. She felt cold sweat tickling her fingers. Her innards felt as frozen as the Arctic Circle. The heart's beat began to race out of control. It was a growing feeling of being unhinged. Not like she had when she had lost her mother and father, in fact. This was something strangely new. What was this feeling? She had never felt such a feeling of discomfort and distress. The young woman felt a great foreboding in the deepest pocket of her heart. A dark destiny was to fall her. And she knew for certain that it was about to hit her hard. She felt the hairs of her body align, reaching for the ceiling. The ground beneath her feet felt like it was trying to slip out from under her. Ellie didn't know what was becoming of her. Why did her chest feel like it was vulnerable? Why did her arms feel like they should be shivering? Why did she feel so helpless? What was this? Despite this odd feeling, Eliza had no reason to stop her expedition. This is a place she would be living for a very long time, so she needed to know what it looked like. Her tiny footsteps traveled across the dirty tiles of the culinary room, passing a beaten, wooden old door.
I wonder what this could be.
Her socially developing mind guided her to the door. She took her vibrantly colored fingernails and curled them around the grimy doorknob. And slowly, Ellie peeled the old door open, letting the men on Mars hear its piercing creak. The young woman tilted her head and peered down the deafeningly dark abyss of the stairwell. She could not see more than a mere 2 feet in front of her eyes. This was the kind of dark that stole a part of you when you gazed upon it. The kind that even if you dared to spare the thought of touching it, it would indeed swallow you whole. One that wickedly teased and pushed your mind to the limits of your grim possibilities. Eliza looked down into the pure black of the basement. She got that odd feeling again. She had an overwhelming urge to panic. She felt like she was surrounded on all sides. Her nerves were begging her to turn away from the stairs, warning her of the grave danger that she was in. However, her mind was so fragile that she had no idea that the thing she was feeling was fear. And fear is something you usually don't feel unless you are threatened. She had no idea things could get so incredibly dark. She had spent her whole life in adjusted, perfect lighting, and now she just sits on the verge of pure, unadulterated darkness. And she is speechless, with her brain completely wiped of all thought. The pitch-black path down beckoned her with seemingly long arms. Eliza pondered whether she should give in to their devious demands, or wait for her Hal to arrive so she could tackle this strange, foreboding area of their house together. Not like she had had the second choice. Her feet had been attached to the floor by 10,000-pound weights. She had been glued to her position by the vengeful force that was beckoning her downstairs. And it was now climbing these steps. Ellie was befuddled by this. Had her own shadow moved? Do shadows even do that? She had no idea. Hers certainly hadn't in past years. But regardless, a shadowed mass was slithering along the walls of the stairwell. There was no outline, masked in the dark of the abyss. Ellie could feel its lustful smile through the inked-out hair. The confines of the basement were not fitting to it anymore. It had seen the light, and it wanted more. It wanted something, and she knew, frighteningly, that it was her. It wanted her. The shadow wanted free, and it wanted her. The light had burst into an area where daylight hasn't seen in ages, and revealed the escape route for whatever demonic being had seen the befuddled woman at the top of the stairs. The shadow danced in their scurvy arms along the rotting wood of the stairway. The black mass saw its new toy, its new victim. All the things it could do to her, all the things it wanted to do to her. The blood on its hands would serve as gloves for when it pierced her heart. Then, the lifeless corpse of little Eliza would be its toy. It would use her as a hollow marionette for entertainment when there wasn't any. It would take liberties with perfecting her face and body, carving and cutting just in the right places to make her look more like him. And just when she was finished, he would play. He would fulfill his endless joys, his rampaging lusts, his deranged cackles. Then would come for her husband. Just one more for the collection. Maybe it would keep her alive just to watch him become a painting tool for the basement walls. Or maybe she would just be a slaughtered cow for her husband, would be the vehicle of the suffering. She didn't know. She just didn't know. This was one of those endless possibilities of this thing and what it could do. She felt it. She knew it. And for the love of God, she couldn't move. Oh God, why couldn't she just move? Eliza knew she was in the utmost of danger, but her body just wouldn't cooperate. She closed her eyes, knowing it had forced some vice upon her and chained her in place. She was a lamb to be sacrificed. There wasn't a damn thing she could do to stop this accursed thing. It was on her now. Just behind her ears. Wickedly seething. Eliza screamed at the top of her lungs, suddenly free of the restraints the beast had put on her. The door immediately slammed shut before her, cutting off the vicious figure from climbing the stairs. Ellie dashed away from the door, racing through the house to find her husband. The young woman had never known her feet were capable of such speed. In a mad dash, she raced toward the ugly Cayenne living room. Hal had been unpacking some old books when his wife burst into the room, forcing the reeds down to the floor with a huge thud.
Hal! The basement. Something was trying to get me.
She sobbed into this nice collared shirt, knowing the grasp of life had nearly strangled her, alive. A thing? Surely you have to be joking, dear. He laughs, not quite understanding what she means, obviously having no idea of the horrible terror his wife had just experienced.
Hal, listen to me. That thing was reaching for me in the basement.
Ellie yelps, pointing to the kitchen where the basement door resided. Fine. Let me see what's bothering you. Harold releases his grip on his wife and picks up an old bat from one of the moving boxes as a defensive weapon. With his wife behind him, he travels down the hallway into the kitchen. He passes the trashed cupboards and the dusty plates.
Be careful, Hal.
Her voice quivered in fright of seeing the beast yet again. They turned the corner, and Harold approached the battered basement door. His hand extended out and turned the nasty knob of the door and yanked the door open, and then peered slowly down the steps. Then looked left. Ellie saw his hand make a quick movement, and then she was blinded! But her eyesight soon returned, and she saw the stairwell, lightened with a calming, dim yellow glow. There was just a light right at the base of the stairs, illuminating them. The stairs were certainly rotted and ancient. Dust filled the air, and the base of the steps revealed vacant, a pile of gray boxes, but no monster. See? There's nothing to worry about, he bellowed.
No, Hal. I'm not joking. There was something there.
Eliza screamed, begging for her husband to just give some sort of notice to how much she was shaking. She just wished he could look into her green eyes and see the pure terror that was wreaking havoc on her tiny body. She wanted him to see what it looked like knowing that you were about to die. Ellie wanted him to see how pale her face was, flushed of its usual vibrant color. And God, just for God's sakes, believe her. You're probably just hallucinating again, dear. It's completely fine, I promise. Even if you were hallucinating again, look, we'll get through it, okay? Just like we get through anything, alright? Her husband hums, pulling her into a somber embrace. Harold had no idea what she had experienced, and failed to bring understanding of it into the picture. She buries her face within his collar, pretending to accept his logic, and the off chance that he's actually right, of course. However, unbeknownst to her partner, her eyes lay, caught in an intense gaze on the stairwell. Eliza knows damn well what she saw. And she knew damn well that what she saw was indeed very real.